Hi, I'm John Weissman, awards editor at Variety, and I'm pleased to have with me two people who need no introduction, Kerry Washington and Don Cheadle.
But he did it anyway.
Yeah, so obviously you don't
That was
really
the entire
that.
introduction, just the name. I'm here with these two people.
That's right.
Guess who we are?
We're sitting here talking.
And they're going to talk about life and work in Hollywood. When people reference your race when describing your career, is that a point of pride, or is that something you think is overplayed in the media as part of your story, or is it a combination?
I don't know. I don't often, I guess I get asked that question sporadically. Mm-hmm. It's not often what is led with, you know, and I don't know if that's just trepidation to dip their toe in the pool about that subject matter, or if it's just because it's less relevant than the work that I'm doing. But I mean, it obviously comes up. I don't know that it's, I think I'm somewhat defined by my race for sure, you know, and I'm good with that, and I actually want that to be a part of whatever story. I don't believe in colorblind casting, you know. I think that that's something that is something that should be fodder for your work. We should use all aspects of ourselves. So I'm always trying to find the place where that actually has an impact on what I'm doing, as opposed to going, well, we're all just people and we're the same and I have the same issues you have. I mean, what do you?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's relevant in the way that gender is relevant.
Yeah.
You know, I bring something to the table as a woman. I bring something to the table as a person of color. So I feel like if it's the only thing you focus on, then it's a danger. And if you never talk about it, it's a danger. That the balance is probably where we should be living when it comes to race.
How would you compare racism to sexism in Hollywood, for example?
How about for you? You had a lot of sexism in this business.
Well, now that I'm a sex object,
yes,
I'm totally objectified in ways that I didn't anticipate, or that I would enjoy as much. I mean, I'm getting a lot of moved to the front of lines and then a little on the ass, you know.
But you like it.
I
Come
thought
on.
Yes, I like it. At 48 years old, I'm still getting the pinches on the ass. It's fantastic. But I'm sure it's not the same for you. Especially, I mean, the role you're playing in particular, there's a lot, that's, you know, something that you guys are always dealing with. I mean, you're a woman of color in a position of power who's behind the scenes, but actually, you know, Geppettoing everything.
Yeah,
so.
but also, you know, completely in love with this guy and sort of vulnerable when it comes to this man. So, I don't know. I also feel like I've been able to do things as a woman in this business that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do as a man. Just like with race, like I wouldn't have been able to play Ray Charles's wife if I wasn't a black woman. So it sometimes makes things more challenging, but it also has allowed for unique experiences like Hotel Rwanda and Ray and Last King, you know, roles that really use our gender and our race.
But there's a constant discussion about, are those opportunities there? Are there enough opportunities for women or for people of color? And do you feel like, has that improved over time?
Well, I think it's sort of like, is it a sine wave, you know? It's like, it depends on when you ask the question, you know? If this was 1971, we'd say, oh, there's tons of opportunities for black people in movies. I don't know if you'd want to be in all of them, but you'd be like, yeah, I got 5 auditions today, you know? But, you know what I mean? And it depends on and then that went away, and then there was a sort of a resurgence again in another sort of a blaxploitation era of the gangster, you know, films and Menace to Society and Boys in the Hood and all these sort of, you know, Dead Presidents. All these movies came out with black, you know, anti-heroes who were in this sort of gangster milieu, and at that time there was a lot of work, and that also was reflected in TV as well. Again, I don't know if they're the kinds of roles that you would have wanted to be in, but I think that where we are right now, there's not enough work for anybody. Yeah. So if wherever there's not enough for anybody, the people who are already somewhat marginalized, the margins are going to be even smaller. So that being said, though, where we are is sort of antithetical to that. You know, she's the lead of a hit TV show, and she's not the only black woman on network that's the lead of a show. That's amazing.
That's huge right now, and different, and I don't know. I think you're really right. I think it is kind of it's that curve, but I do have the sense that it's curving upward. I do have the sense that if you're looking for consistency and dependability in your work, this is not the career for you. But I think as more women are in positions of power and more people of color are in positions of power, the stories become more inclusive, the casting becomes more inclusive.
And what was it like trying to get started?
So funny, Kerry and I did a movie a long time ago called United States of Leland. I was looking at the cast list in that movie. Like
nuts.
Ryan Gosling, Michelle Williams, Jenna Malone, Kevin Spacey, Chris Klein, Michael Pena.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, all people that are still working, you know, which is pretty fascinating. But I came out of school, I graduated in 1986, and I came out of school at a time when, you know, those great, you know, TV, LA Law was on, and Hill Street Blues, and all the comedies that were on TV, and all of those roles, those guest spots, you could get as a no-named actor that no one, you know, had no track record, no resume. If you were good and, you know, you could get that shot. Those shots are all being filled now with people who have name recognition, you know?
Yeah.
And that's tough. People come up and ask me now, well, how could I, you know, what could I do to start? I say, I have no idea. When I started acting, I walked into a room, I met a casting director, I met a producer, director. Now they go in a room and there's a camera in a corner, or they're taping themselves at home and emailing them in. And that's just antithetical to the way that so I don't know how to even start now. But I count myself very fortunate. I don't think I'm there, quote unquote. I think I always feel like it's a grind.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
2 years ago, you'd ask me that question, I'd be like, I don't know, man. I gotta get, I hope something
I'm looking
jumps
for
up.
something to do.
Yeah, I need a job.
Yeah, I actually think that attitude is what keeps the actors that are consistently working actors, that attitude is what keeps you in the game, because you've never arrived in this job. I mean, if you want to stay, you look at somebody like Diahann Carroll. If you ask somebody who Diahann Carroll is, it depends on how old they are. Right. You know, people of my generation or younger are like, isn't that Whitley's mother from a different world? Or people of my mother's generation will give you Julia. In between, there's Agnes of God and Dynasty. And here's a woman, you know, women like Rita Moreno and Julie Andrews. These are women who, Barbara Streisand, keep reinventing themselves. They directed, they produced, they did television and film and theater. You know, we are constantly willing to work in all different mediums because you just want to work. Yeah. You want to work. It's about the work. It's not about the results or the making it or the being there. It's about just continuing to grow as an artist and as a craftsperson, you know?
And that conduit is getting smaller and smaller. I mean, definitely in film. And even network TV, it's
network
limited.
TV has had to now compete with cable TV, and so the writing is getting stronger. I mean, I feel like the most exciting things in our business right now are happening on television.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Has your ambition changed, or was that ever a factor? Like, did you see yourself dreaming of being a film actor as opposed to TV, or was it that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first I dreamed of being doing a lot of theater, and I did that when I graduated from school. I worked all around the country in a lot of different regional theaters, and had a great time, and have gone back and done stage along this path, this career that it's such a weird word to use. You just feel like you got another job.
Yes, exactly. Like. Hobbling it together.
yeah. But I definitely, when I graduated from school, I thought I wouldn't do television, TV. Now I'm gonna do film and I'm gonna do theater. That's the two pillars of what my career is going to be. But as Kerry said, the most exciting things in many ways are happening on TV right now. The most exciting writing. Mm-hmm. This character I don't think would even exist for me in a film anyway. Mm-hmm. So who I play on, in my show, Marty Kahn, this complex individual wouldn't exist for me, or I hadn't seen anything like that came across the transom for me prior to this. So,
likewise.
So yeah, I mean, it was just exciting and interesting, and it didn't really matter to me where it was. I wanted to play that character.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly the experience I had. And I think part of it is that we got to this point in filmmaking where in studio films, there are so many cooks in the kitchen. I mean, you're making, the person in charge of story is kind of the lead actor, kind of the director, the studio, the producers. Everybody's trying to figure out what's going to sell. Yeah. And in television, the writer is king. The writer, or in our case, the writer is queen. The writer is in charge.
The bottom line is profitability. And as Kerry said, can be a moving target, and everyone's trying to figure out how do we secure this. That's why you'll see 15 sequels and and I'm in one. So, it's like, that's what the movie business is about. So when a special movie or a smaller movie somehow gets through and actually gets support and starts to make noise, like Beast of the Southern Wild or something, it's like, breath of fresh air.
So do you feel enabled to have a sort of a long-term vision for your career at this point? And how selective do you feel like you can be about the roles you take on at this point in your careers?
I think, I'm going to guess for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Don and I are actors who have always been really selective. That idea of having the power to say no, that really comes internally. Having the power to say yes and greenlight something is a whole other thing.
That's speaking for Kerry and I, we don't understand what that is and haven't had that either.
But wow, how cool that would be.
Wouldn't that be great? What about that on the career path? Greenlight.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll say yes.
I'll take that.
Yeah. And it's also, as you're aware of it, I don't know if I get a lot of people come up to me and they say, wow, how did you always pick these great movies and you're so selective and your choices are so, I'm going, sometimes your choices are as good as the things that they will put you in. It's like, we don't control this all the time. And we're fortunate when a movie that we want to do gets done. I've been on movie sets on location where I've called my agent and he says, there's no money in escrow. You're sitting on a set. We shot today. Well, that may be it. It's not This is not ever guaranteed, and you don't ever know it's happened until it happened, and you go, oh, I'm in that movie, and it came out, and it's a movie.
Yeah.
A lot of times these things just fritter away. So we've also been very fortunate, blessed, lucky to have the things that we've been attracted to actually work out. It's not always, it's rare.
Are you bursting with like dream projects or dream ideas, things you would like to do, and do you see opportunities for that to happen? Or is it more seeing what comes across?
Are you bursting, Don?
I'm not bursting. I'm on a slow boil.
Are you blossoming, maybe?
I'm blossoming. My petals have just started to open and greet the morning sun. Thank you. No, I mean, there are things that there are writers I want to work with, there's directors I want to work with. It's more that. I want to work with directors whose work I'm enamored of, and writers, and in that way. I don't have any projects, well, there's one, but I don't want to talk about it. But I don't have any slate of things that I'm trying to tick off and go, okay, did that one. I'm just trying to, still identify those pieces that are really interesting and try to help them get made, because it seems like those are the ones that take the most work. It's the ones that are really interesting.
How much credit does the entertainment industry deserve in, for example, creating a climate that would allow someone like Jason Collins be comfortable outing himself in this day and age? Like, do you think the entertainment community and what's been produced has helped make that happen?
I mean, if you had something like that where you knew that there are some corridors that you would be vilified if you were to do that, and then once that gets picked up, it's red meat. You know what I mean? It's in a lot of ways the media, and much more in a place like London or England, but the media has to eat you twice. You know what I mean? If they can eat you twice, that's great. I want to build you up, and it'd be great if something happened to you that I can just then tear you down and eat you again. And then maybe, Robert, look at Robert Downey Jr., who's had this happen, and then he comes back all the way. It's like, oh, good, we get to, it's fodder. You are used as a shuttlecock to bat back and forth sometimes. So I would imagine that him doing that in this atmosphere with social media and all the ways that you could be put on blast, it probably was not helpful, I would imagine. If I were in that position, I would see a lot of pitfalls to that.
Maybe. I mean, I do think that images in film and television and theater they give people the opportunity to move into a comfort zone with an idea that they may not feel entirely ready for in their own lives. Like, I think it means something that we were watching a black president on television years before that actually was able to happen in the real world in the United States, because I think people go, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. I wouldn't say that 24 is responsible for the president that we have today, but I do think sometimes we're able to move into
you think more
territory.
Freeman is, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I do. I think, you know, sometimes we can cross the divide for people a little bit, and can,
No, that's
you know,
true. The
seeing a
entree
movie
is
about,
easier if you
yeah.
can imagine it first, I guess.
Does Modern Family help open somebody's mind to the idea that a gay family is a little bit more like their own family than they thought? Maybe, sure.
Well, House of Lies, for example, has a character that may be unlike I've ever seen on television in terms of a child who's exploring this stuff. I mean, have you perceived any reaction to that in particular at all, or?
I had an interesting talk with a woman. I was in Vegas, we were shooting. Very early in the morning, I came downstairs and she was using the buffing the floors, black woman. And she said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, so those movies that you got, that you're in, those movies that come out, what's going on with your son in those movies?" It's like, "Those movies? Oh, House of Lies." Yeah, my son, she goes, "Yeah, what's up with him? Is he gay? Or what, you know, what's the situation?" And I said, "He hasn't made it known to anyone necessarily what he is." He's said that, you know, and in one episode he said, "Dad, what do you do when you like a boy and a girl?" You know, and in Imicable Marty Wisdom, I was like, "I don't know." You know, so he's hasn't come out necessarily. I don't know that he's gay. I don't know if he's thinking about transgender, if he's just in that gender fluid identity that's almost the entire generation of his age right now is dealing with. So many kids are dealing with that right now. But anyway, back to the conversation. She said, "So what's up with that?" And I said, I don't know, I'm not sure. She said, "Well, how do you think you should deal with something like that?" I said, "Well, I think you just love them. I mean, that's, Marty just loves his son, you just love him." And she said, "You know, because my daughter's gay. And she's going through a lot of drama and people mess with her and stuff at school, and I just love her, and I just wanted to know if you guys were ever going to really deal with that and how you were going to deal with that." I said, I'm not sure yet, but it really meant a lot to her, you know, and I was like, wow, okay, you know, so yeah, it's and other conversations I've had with people have let me know that when you strike the right nerve in the right place, you know, you can't anticipate how that's gonna, the reverberations are gonna happen out there. But it's nice when it's not just something that you're doing on TV to entertain, but people are really bringing it to themselves and going, okay, let me look at myself about this.
It makes me think about, there's a, you know, in terms of talking about race, the woman who runs my digital social media, Allison Peters, she came up with this idea when I was on the cover of Ebony to do a contest where people would take a picture of themselves with me on the cover of Ebony, and the coolest, most creative Instagrams, we sent out autographed copies. So it was just sort of a neat way to engage followers online. It was so moving to us because what happened was you got all these pictures of white women going to buy Ebony magazine, or, you know, Latin women, people overseas going to international magazine stores. Like suddenly, because of the power of the television show, people were crossing over into racial categories and cultural items that they normally wouldn't identify with, wouldn't even occur to them to purchase that magazine. And that was really moving to me.
Can you talk about activism, what ways you're comfortable doing it, what ways maybe you're not comfortable doing it, and just how that comes into play for you?
It's interesting because I've found myself mixed into several different things, concerns that are happening. You know, I had a poker tournament that I had at the World Series of Poker that we did for 3 years, 4 years, made a lot of money. I'm waffling with saying genocide, but the humanitarian crisis in Darfur. And other things that I've been a part of. And it's that interesting mix where you're there because you can draw focus and attention and attraction, but really what you're trying to do is go, but that's the expert. That person really knows 1,000 times more than I do about the issue. And these are the people who it's about, you know. Yes, I would love to talk about Iron Man with you, but I want you to talk to them about their thing.
You're trying to be like Magic Johnson and just dish it
I'm trying
off.
to pass the ball, like Brad Pitt was saying, and it's really true. He goes, we can't get out of the light, and they can't get in the light. So
yeah,
we're
so
trying
how
to
do we
use that
split
bounce
that
card
power?
and go,
Yeah,
oh, you're looking at me? Good. Bing, now look at that. You know, so that's kind of what you're tasked to do. And at the same time, if you weren't a celebrity, if you didn't have that recognition, you would not have the ability to do that. So there's a, for me, I see the value of trying to also stay sort of in a popular frame so that I can continue to do the other things in the more private frame. But it's a lot of it's frustrating to me because I see and I when I get the feedback from the organizations I work with, it's like when I pull out of it, it's like a lot of times that whole energy gets sucked out of it too, and now it's hard to get that issue back in the press. Like, no one's talking about Darfur right now. There was a moment where that was all the rage, and George was there, and I went over there, and you know, we were able to bring Nightline, and 60 Minutes did a thing, and there was just all of this interest. Now it's died down somewhat, but there are still atrocities happening there. There's still refugees that cannot come home, that are living in these camps on the outskirts of Chad and Sudan, and there's still a great need, but it's not sexy anymore like it was sexy. So how is that really effective? You come back sometimes, I come back looking at it going, well, that was great for that little moment, but what have we really done overall? So
it's one of the reasons why I feel like it's so important when we do this kind of work to shine the light on the organization, but also to encourage our fans to become involved. Because that's what it requires. It requires kind of the ongoing momentum of people being involved. Like, for me, I remember a point where I felt like I come from a family that's pretty politically active and politically engaged, and for me, there was a point in my career where I thought, oh, am I going to have to step back and not be involved because I'm in a position of public access, you know, I'm in the public eye. And I thought, that's not fair, you know, because I participate as an American. I participate.
Why? Because you thought people would go, what are you, you're just a celebrity, shut up.
Yeah.
Which does happen.
All the time. And I thought, no, but I participate because I'm an American and I live in a democracy and my country needs me to participate. So I can't now step back and let go of my responsibility because I'm an actor. But the hope is that other people will know that it's their responsibility to also participate, because if they want to be like us in these other ways of like, what shoes are they wearing, where are they going on vacation, what are they eating, what are all the things that the weekly magazines are telling you, then they should also want to be engaged and make a difference and do something more meaningful. So you hope that that example is part of what comes out of it.
In this arena, what are your top priorities right now, if you could throw attention to something?
Well, I'm working with UNEP right now, the United Nations Environmental Program, to try to talk about climate change and keep that in the focus. I'm doing a documentary with Showtime about it.
You are?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. But it's one of those situations where it's, I've been asking people to where they stand on the issue and why they think what they think. And really what you run into is just like a ton of bias, but not just on, like I ran into these guys, I was on a golf course, and I said, I just got back from Plainview, Texas, where we were looking at the Cargill plant that shut down, and the owner of the plant said it was because the greenbelt was moving north, and there was no grain to feed the cattle, so no cattle for the plant. So he said it's climate change. He said that. A Texan cattleman said the words.
Wow.
So I was like, that's pretty dramatic. And he shut down the plant. So these are people who'd been working at this plant. Some have been working there for 35 years. And they got 2 weeks notice. So this, to me, I'm saying, is on the ground. We don't have to wait for whatever this date certain is out in the future. It's happening now. Right. People are losing their careers today. But I believe that's to be the case. Now, others I talked to said they don't believe it's real. I said, why don't you believe that? Well, one guy said, well, first, I'm a Texan. And then I was like, so it's just based on geography why you don't believe it? But that is. And so then I started challenging my friends and people that I know who do believe in it. I said, well, why do you believe in it? And they said, well, there's just a preponderance of evidence that proves it. I said, can you name a study? Can you talk about it, one climate scientist? And it's not really about what's staring you in the face. It's about what you're staring at.
Wow.
So if your talking head that you believe in is saying the thing that confirms your bias, then you're good. And both sides are doing that of this issue, both sides of the issue. So I'm very excited because I met a evangelical, right-wing, conservative climate scientist.
How fantastic.
And so
How
we've been building
fantastic.
and trying to figure out, like, can we cut through the bias and the rhetoric and the you're a blue state, I'm a red state, things that don't have anything to do with science and actual data. But that data has to be digestible at the layman level, and that has to be something that can be understood. So it's to me, that's the interesting aspect of this thing that I believe in and know in my heart is very real and is in you know, impacting us day to day, and the people in the margin speaking about more than anyone. That we're insulated. We've got some room to like ride this thing out. The people who are on the fringes and the poor people, as always, the poor people and disenfranchised and those who have no advocate for them, they're gonna get it the hardest and the worst. So
Globally.
Globally, you know, we're insulated in this country more than other places are in the world. So that's an issue that I'm trying to figure out how to talk about in a way that's salient, in a way that actually does something that doesn't just come off as my bias against your bias.
That's awesome.
And Kerry, for you?
My area of passion has really always been the arts and humanities. I guess because I was kind of a kid who, in a way, like arts programming, the National Endowment for the Arts was like a third parent for me, growing up as a latchkey kid in the Bronx. So I've always been really passionate about maintaining funding for the National Endowment for the Arts, National Endowment for Humanities, maintaining arts education, and I work a lot on the President's Committee for the Arts and Humanities and with Americans for the Arts. And similarly, I do a lot of work with V-Day, which is a movement to end violence against women, but it was born out of a play, Eve Ensler's play, The Vagina Monologues, that became a global movement to end violence against women. So I'm always really interested in the power of the arts to transform lives and making sure that all people have access to that power.
I mean, it's like how, if I didn't have that, I would have never been introduced to music in the way that I was. My parents couldn't afford a sax. You know, the school had a sax, and then we could.
We actually have this program with the President's Committee called Turnaround Arts. It came out of this groundbreaking study that the committee did last year on the state of arts education and how arts education is not sort of this extracurricular bonus, but it really is the key to unlock all of the problems of education. Like, you can't get kids to go to school, you can't get kids to stay in school, you can't get kids to graduate. Guess what? Schools that have those programs, all three of those problems are solved because kids are inspired to come in, they stay in, and they graduate at a higher level. Also, the math scores are higher, They learn how to be problem solvers. Like, every CEO is looking for innovative thinkers. The arts teaches you how to innovate and think creatively, think outside of the box in a way that, you know, memorizing answers for a test doesn't. So we've actually been working with a handful of schools all over the country using the arts and tracking the progress of those schools using arts programming. So it's exciting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sorry, we're going to have to wrap up, but I want to ask one more question of you guys. What was your initial inspiration for wanting to become an actor, and has that evolved in any way, or is it every bit the same that it was when you first dreamed of doing this?
I don't remember the initial. I don't remember what it was. I remember, you know, being on stage in 6th grade as Templeton the Rat in Charlotte's Web. And
yes, I need video of that. I need video of that.
and getting applause and going,
so cute.
Okay.
I'll take that.
All right, let's do that some more. And it wasn't until much later, you know, when I started studying that the sort of things that you're talking about, this sort of like the dealing with your own shit that that working in that way forces you to do, and the going, this isn't actually comfortable. I don't actually like all of this, but I see that this is really what I'm supposed to do. And you know, it was much later that it became, you know, first it was all fun and applause, and then it was like, I can get a lot of girls like this. This is gonna work out for that. And then, I'll be rich. And all of the things sort of like, then it really got to be about what I was actually doing. It wasn't until I got to college and I went to Cal Arts. It wasn't until we started really getting into it at the nexus of you really figuring out who you are in life at the same time and synthesizing these arts and with your human path and going, what does all of that mean, that it really started to mean something more to me. that it does today. And I don't think that's changed. I'm still looking for the deeper reasons to do it. And the money.
Not the girls anymore, you're good there.
Yeah, I did the girls thing.
I think the reasons have changed. When I first fell in love with acting, it was about really escapism. It was about, you know, loving the idea of being somebody else in some other place and being able to forget about my real life and be something else. And the more that I've worked, the more I've realized that you actually don't get to escape your stuff. You actually have to deal with your stuff in very concrete ways if you want to do this job well.
Yeah, you want to be good.
Mm-hmm. And that has been interesting because then you realize the more that you're willing to confront your stuff and be really vulnerable about it, the more people identify with it, because you get to that human stuff that is the stuff that binds us all to each other. So when people see that vulnerable, raw truth, it connects to something in them, and then they feel like the experience was worthwhile. So I think that's why we do it, to kind of dig up that stuff to find a truth that people can relate to. So you learn more about yourself, who you want to be, who you don't want to be.
Who you are.
Mm-hmm. Ugh. Mm-hmm. Ew.
Well, it's definitely working for us watching you. So, well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
Anytime I get to spend with him is good.
Yeah,
all right.
It's all good. Had a ball.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
And you.
Hey, shake them, let me hang.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very
Such a
much.
pleasure.
Thanks a lot.